Oh, this is an interesting question that I just got in the live stream. Probably accept that. I don't really censor myself at all. I always say I'm too old for that crap, even though I'm a relatively young guy. I'm just at a state in my life where I really don't care. There are things that I will not do because obviously it's not worth doing to lose my job, and I don't want to hurt people that are at this company because I like the people that I work with tremendously. But one of the things that I said yesterday is you can't be afraid anymore, and you can't play defense. And you've heard me say that you can't be on defense for years now. You can't. The only guy that's come along that's not been on defense has been Trump, and he completely changed the political spectrum. I mean, he did. I have to remind everybody about this. Go back to the 2020 election. Okay, just do yourself a favor and go back. We're going to go into the Georgia stuff here in a second. Go back to the 2020 election, all right? One of the most compelling arguments that Trump didn't actually lose. Forget about the specific cases. Let's just look at the overarching thing, okay? One of the most compelling arguments that Trump didn't lose is we have an historic pattern that is decades old when it comes to down ballot voting. So you start at the top of the ticket. That's where you vote for president, right? And you vote for your senators and your congresspeople and down the ballot, right? Americans always vote in the same percentages down ballot versus just single race. There are people who will just vote for president and not vote for anybody else. But those percentages are always the same. And there was an exorbitant jump in the number of people in 2020 that voted for just president and didn't vote for anybody else on the ticket. Now, because it was so abnormal, now there will be people on the news and there will be, people out there who will just say, well, that's just, it was a weird election year and COVID and everything else, because that's their catch-all. But if you're going to mail in your ballot and you're not even going to fill out a couple more races, even your Senate race or whatever, and you're only going to fill out the presidential race, and you're doing so in numbers that are hundreds of times higher than at any election previously. And not only that, well, let me just finish that point. If you're doing that and you're only voting for that race in larger numbers than have ever been seen before, instead of voting for other races, that is suspect. And that is what would happen if you're in a crunch and you've told everybody that there is a pipe that is burst, even though no pipe is actually burst, right, Fulton County? And you're trying to fill out and stuff ballots. You don't have a lot of time to fill out all of the ballots, so you just fill out the one race that you're trying to win. And that's what a lot of people have looked at. The other thing is that the sheer amount of people who voted Democrat for president and Republican for the rest of the races doesn't make any sense. Trump is more popular within the Republican base than Ronald Reagan is. That hurts people's feelings sometimes to hear that, but that's the truth. And the polling had been that way for over 4 years. So how is it that Republicans won everything else on the same ballots that Trump was on, but Trump didn't win, even though he was more popular among Republicans than even Ronald Reagan was? He had the highest inter-party popularity rating that we have seen in decades. So how is it that he lost? This has a lot of people looking at it and going, shenanigans. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Every Republican won in this district, but Trump lost. Yet Trump is extremely popular in the polling in that district. What? That doesn't really make any sense, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of these arguments there that you're looking at, and that's why they had to take him out. But going back to the point that I'm making, he was on offense all the time. And he was extremely popular as a result of it. He gained in every single demographic except for white men. White men were the only ones that he lost votes in when he came around for re-election. That was it. He gained in every other group, including black women, who are the most liberal of all demographics. So you start looking at it, what did he do different? He went on offense. You can't be on defense anymore. You can't. Now, I think that Republicans have done a better job of deflecting the you're a racist, you're a sexist, you're a homophobe thing. I think they've done a better job of that over the past couple of years. But you have to go on offense. You've got to provide the examples of how they're racist. You got to provide the examples of how, how they're sexist and how they're homophobic and everything else, because they are. They are. I don't know what else to say. They are. Perfect example is what I was just talking about with Cuba. Now, of course, on the Discord server, people pointed out, well, the reason that the Biden administration doesn't want Cubans here, even though they're in the Latin community, is because, well, Cubans vote Republican. Which further proves my point that it's not about the people needing a better life or escaping horrible conditions in their home country, which the Democrats always use to justify anybody coming across the southern border and getting released into the United States. How is it that the Biden administration's policy is if you come from South America or Central America or Mexico, you get to come into the United States free of charge, you get to hang out here, and we'll even release you into the country and catch and release, and then you get to stay. And if we've even deported you under the Trump administration, come back, we'll let you back in. That's a policy under the Biden administration, too. There was even a policy where if you were a criminal, you could still come back to the United States. We talked about that. The Biden administration said, even if you were deported because of criminal activity, come back, we'll let you back in the United States. But the Cubans, who are in the same overarching racial group, aren't allowed into the United States, even though they're fleeing right now a communist country that oppresses and abuses their people, and people are starving to death, and they have no health care. COVID's not being handled very well. They're not allowed to come? I thought it was about people needing a better life for their families. I thought it was about people leaving countries in which crime was an issue, starvation was an issue, poverty was an issue, which they have made about everybody coming through Mexico. That's the arguments the Democrats have made. They just want a better life for themselves. Their country is dirty. Their country is corrupt. There's cartels. There's gangs. Even if they're not specifically a target of any of this, it is seen as a legitimate asylum claim, according to the Democratic Party, for anybody coming through Mexico and coming through our southern border just because their home country is a bleep hole country. Nice little throwback to the whole bleep hole comments. But it's not okay for the Cubans? Cubans are Latino. Many Cubans are Black Latino. Why can't they do the same thing that everybody in the southern border is doing? I thought it was about making sure that everybody had an opportunity for a better life for their family, right? That's what it was about. Escaping bad countries and coming to the United States and having an opportunity to live. Apparently not for the Cubans. Why? Ask people in your inner circle who vote Democrat, ask them why. Why is it the Cubans can't come here, but the Mexicans and Hondurans and Guatemalans can? What's the difference? There's one. That difference is Cubans vote Republican, which means they don't care about non-white people having an opportunity in the United States. They only care about certain non-white people who they can exploit for political gain. Shove it right back in their face. All they do is exploit people for votes. That's all they do. Stop letting them get away with it and go on offense. Stop being on defense. Somebody says you're a racist because you don't want the Mexicans in here. Say you're racist because you don't want the Cubans in here. Put them on defense. Let them defend that position. Let them come up with an argument on why Cubans can't come to the United States but Mexicans can. Do it. See what happens. I'll put the communist regime in Cuba up against the cartels any day of the week. Because the cartels, frankly, have less of an impact. More coming up, 95.3 MNC.
Casey Hendrickson.